When I arrived home early, I saw through the window that Sarah, my wife, was sitting in our living room with another man. They were laughing and gesturing as if nothing was happening around them. Something in their behavior immediately struck me as strange, although I did not dare to enter the house right away. Instead, I waited in the car, watching them talk. An hour later, he came out and Sarah closed the door behind him. I pretended I had just gotten home from work and walked into the house. Sarah looked a little puzzled, but quickly put her usual smile back on her face. I asked her if anyone had been over, and she answered immediately, "No, it's just me today." I didn't want to make a scene, so I didn't say anything, but anger was boiling inside me. I work in IT, and my profession has taught me to pay attention to details. My suspicion only grew stronger, so I decided to act. At night, when Sarah fell asleep, I took her phone and accessed her chats. What I saw shocked me. The correspondence with a certain Mark was full of hints and sometimes quite frank things. They discussed how they spent their time together and even wrote when I would be working late the next time. I took screenshots of everything I found. At first I was filled with anger, then frustration, and then cold determination. I decided that I would not allow her to lie to my face anymore. The next day I confronted her. She tried to make excuses, saying it was just flirting and that it was nothing serious. But I knew the truth. I wasn't prepared for her to blame me. She said I was too busy with work and didn't pay enough attention to her. That was the moment when I realized that our relationship had long since cracked, which we both ignored. But her choice to cheat rather than talk about the problems put everything in its place. I packed her things and asked her to leave the house. She was crying, screaming, but I remained steadfast. Later I found out that she moved in with the same Mark. Perhaps they will really find happiness together. But what about me? I realized that it was time to focus on myself. Now I have started a new chapter in my life, and although it was painful, I am grateful for this experience. My betrayal opened my eyes to the fact that true happiness begins with honesty, both with myself and with others. A few weeks after Sarah left, I began to notice how much my life had changed. The silence in the house was no longer depressing, but rather calming. I immersed myself in my work and even started going to the gym, which I had long dreamed of doing but always found excuses. One day, while looking through old photos on my laptop, I accidentally came across a folder with our vacation together. Something made me look at those pictures more closely. In one of them, taken a few months ago, I noticed the shadow of another man in the background. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now it looked too suspicious. I decided to return to the investigation. I still had access to her old accounts that she had left behind when she changed phones. Through the backup, I found correspondence that stretched back several years. It turned out that this was not her first flirtation. She had been playing a double game for almost our entire marriage. At that moment, I realized that I didn't even know the real Sarah. The person with whom I shared my life, who was my partner, my friend, and now she was a stranger. But life will always find something to surprise you. A month later, I received a message from Mark. It was short, "We need to talk." I decided we should meet, even though I didn't know what to expect. At the meeting, he looked tired and irritated. He told me that Sarah had left him as well. Her new promises turned out to be as much of a lie as our marriage. Mark admitted that he had lost everything, his business, his friends, even his self-respect, because of the affair. "I thought I'd won something by taking her away from you," he said. "But I realized that she only destroys everything she touches." His words left me with a bitter aftertaste. Perhaps it was fate's revenge. But I didn't care about that anymore. I no longer wanted to dwell on the past. The next day I put the house up for sale. It was too full of memories that I wanted to leave behind. When I first stepped on the threshold of my new apartment, I realized that it was not just a new home. It was a new beginning. A few months have passed since I moved into my new apartment. Life gradually began to make sense, and I felt like I was finally moving forward. However, sometimes the past still reminded me of itself. One weekend, while looking through my emails, I received a message from an unknown address. The message was from Sarah. She wrote that she was sorry for everything that had happened and wanted to talk. Her words seemed sincere, but I wasn't sure if they were. At first, I wanted to ignore the email, but something made me respond. I wrote her a short message in which I agreed to meet. We arranged to meet at the cafe where we had first spent an evening together many years ago. When I arrived, she was already waiting for me. She looked tired, but still retained the confidence I had once loved so much about her. Sarah started talking without waiting for me to say anything. She was apologizing, confessing that she had lost everything, not only me, but also everything we had built together. She said that after breaking up with Mark, she found herself all alone and realized what a mistake she had made. I listened to her in silence, but there was no room for compassion in my mind. I realized that her words no longer had any effect on me. When she asked if there was a chance to fix things, I answered honestly, "No." Sarah cried, but I felt neither anger nor joy at this. It was just another proof that our paths had long since parted. I said goodbye and left the cafe, leaving her with her thoughts. This meeting was the final chord in our story. It made me realize that I was moving in the right direction. Instead of looking for mistakes in the past, I started building a future that belonged only to me. And this future was bright, even without Sarah in it. After that meeting, I decided not to return to the past. I deleted her number, all old correspondence, photos, everything that could remind me of those times. It was not an act of hatred or revenge, but rather a necessity to move forward. Life gradually began to gain momentum. New interesting projects appeared in my work, and I began to feel real freedom. Free from constant control and doubt, I began to discover new opportunities. I was offered a position at a large Silicon Valley company, and I accepted without hesitation. My new life began with a move to San Francisco. The city greeted me with dynamism, diversity, and the opportunity to build everything from scratch. I rented a small but stylish apartment overlooking the bay, and it became a symbol for me of the beginning of a new chapter. One evening, while walking near the Golden Gate Bridge, I met Elizabeth. She worked as a graphic designer, and we accidentally bumped into each other when we both decided to take a picture of the sunset from the same place. The conversation, which began with a discussion of light and angles, gradually turned to topics of life, travel, and work. Elizabeth was the complete opposite of Sarah. She was frank, warm, and sincere. We started dating, and after a few months I realized that for the first time in a long time I felt real happiness. She not only supported me in everything, but also inspired me to grow and develop. A year later I proposed to her and she said yes. Our wedding was modest on the ocean, among our closest friends. At that moment, I realized that all the difficulties I had gone through had led me here. Sarah never appeared in my life again. I heard from our mutual friends that she moved to another city and started over. Perhaps she found her happiness too. And me? I finally found peace and harmony. And now, when I look back, I don't feel bitter or regretful. Only gratitude for the lessons that helped me become who I am today. My life with Elizabeth became quiet but full of meaning. We were both busy doing our own thing, but we always made time for each other. Her creativity and my passion for technology created a balance that I never imagined possible. One day, while looking through my old developments for work, I found a note about a project I had once worked on with great enthusiasm, but never finished due to the constant stress of my marriage to Sarah. It was an idea for a startup platform that would help people store and analyze their memories, but not like regular scrapbooks or social media. It was supposed to be a space where you could experience your moments, viewing them in the context of life as a kind of story. I told Elizabeth about it, and she supported me more than I could have expected. Her ideas on design and user experience were a real breakthrough. We decided to work together on this project. Within a year, the platform was ready. We called it Lifelines. At first it was a small project, but it quickly gained popularity. People were sharing their stories, connecting events in their lives with music, photos, even the weather conditions of the day. It became something bigger than I could have imagined. One day, a letter arrived at the platform's mailbox. The author was Sarah. She wrote that she came across the platform by chance and was impressed. She thanked Lifelines for helping her to rethink her past and see how her choices affected her life. This letter made me think. I realized that we all follow our own paths, make mistakes, but the main thing is to learn from them and move on. I did not answer her, not because of anger or indifference, but because I felt that the past should stay in the past. Our startup was successful, but it was not the most important thing in my life. The most important thing was that I had found the harmony I had been searching for so long. Now I knew that life can be unpredictable and difficult, but that's the beauty of it. Happiness is not an end point, but a path you take with the right people by your side. Our startup, Lifelines, quickly turned into more than just a business. It became a movement, a community where people shared their life stories, inspired each other, sought support, and reimagined the past. Elizabeth and I often received emails from users who wrote how the platform had changed their lives. One day I received an invitation to speak at a technology conference in San Francisco. It was a great honor, but also a challenge. I was not a public person, but Elizabeth convinced me that my story could inspire others. She helped me prepare, and I took the stage to share my journey from a broken relationship to creating a new life and a project that now connected thousands of people. My speech was warmly received, and many people came up to me afterwards. Among them was an elderly man who said, "Your story reminded me how important it is to stay honest with yourself. You have done more than create a platform. You are helping people deal with their past and find peace." His words left me thinking for a long time. It was the moment when I realized that our platform is not just a technical product. It is a place where people find meaning and strength to move on. Our life with Elizabeth became increasingly busy. We traveled a lot, participated in charity projects, and even expanded the platform by adding a feature that allowed people to create time capsules, digital messages that could be opened in a few years. This generated a lot of interest, and we received a huge amount of feedback. However, life always holds surprises for us. Once we found out that we were expecting a child. It was unexpected but joyful news. We began to prepare for a new chapter in our lives, and I felt again how much I had changed in recent years. The birth of our daughter, whom we named Sophia, was the happiest moment of my life. Now I knew that everything that had happened to me in the past had a meaning. It had led me to this moment, to my family, and to the life I had built from scratch. Looking at Sophia, I realized that now my task is to teach her that true strength lies in the ability to get up after a fall. That every choice, even the wrong one, is part of our journey. And the main thing is to never give up and always move forward. Our life went on, and I knew that there were still many challenges and joys ahead. But now I was ready for anything, because I knew I had the support and love I had been looking for all my life. When Sophia came into our lives, everything took on a new meaning. Her first laugh, her first steps, her first word, every moment with her was a gift. I could never have imagined that a child would change me so much. The responsibility I felt was both scary and inspiring. One day, when Sophia was about 3 years old, Elizabeth and I decided to do something special. We gathered stories from our lives, our letters, photos, memories, even the notes we took when we found out we were expecting her. We created her very own time capsule for Sophia to open when she becomes an adult. It was a labor of love, and we both put a piece of our souls into it. While we were working on this capsule, I remembered a letter from Sarah that I received years ago. It was the only thing I hadn't completely deleted, keeping it in a separate folder as a reminder of the past. I decided to read it again. The letter turned out to be not just an apology, but a kind of recognition of her weaknesses and mistakes. She wrote that she wished she could go back and do things differently, but she knew it was impossible. This time I felt something completely different. Not pain or anger, but only gratitude for what happened the way it did. The past pain opened the door to where I am now and to the people I now love above all else. Lifelines continued to grow. We added the ability to create shared stories for families, friends, and even companies. The success exceeded all our expectations, but what warmed me the most were the letters from people who told us how our project helped them cope with the pain of loss or find themselves. A few years later, we were invited to participate in an international conference on technology and humanity. It was a proud moment for both of us. Elizabeth was the first to speak, telling how we worked together, how we created the platform, and what values we put into this project. Then I spoke, and for the first time publicly told the story that gave rise to the creation of Lifelines. After the speech, a woman came up to us, looking a little nervous. She introduced herself as a psychologist who works with people who have experienced trauma. She thanked us for our project and said, "You didn't just create a platform. You have given people the opportunity to come to terms with their past and move forward." Her words reaffirmed for me that everything we go through has meaning. Every pain, every loss, every decision leads us to where we need to be. Now Sophia is already going to school. She is growing up to be a smart, cheerful, and extremely curious girl. Elizabeth and I decided to create another time capsule for her, which will contain not only our stories, but also stories that she has already started writing herself. Because life is a constant movement, and the most important thing we can do is to leave behind memories that will help future generations understand who we were and how we got to this point. I am no longer afraid of the past. It has become the foundation on which my present is built. And now I am confident that no matter what lies ahead, I will cope, because I have the people I love and the path I have chosen. Time passed, and our lives became richer and richer in new experiences. Sophia grew up, and every day I saw more and more of both Elizabeth and me in her. She was an extremely creative child, always drawing something, making up stories, or creating her own little projects, as she called them. One evening, when we were all having dinner together, Sophia asked, "Dad, how did you decide to create Lifelines?" This question took me by surprise. She was still too young to tell the whole truth, so I decided to answer simply but sincerely. It happened because I wanted to help people remember their most important moments and learn from them. Sophia listened to me attentively and then said, "I want to create something of my own when I grow up, something that will be useful for others." At that moment, I realized that everything we were doing with Elizabeth was not just for us or for the users of our platform. We were building something bigger, an example for our child, a legacy she could be proud of. There was also a breakthrough in the work of Lifelines. We launched an artificial intelligence integration that allowed users to create a timeline of their lives with a minimum of effort. People could simply upload their photos, videos, or even recordings, and the system would automatically build their life story. The popularity of this functionality was incredible. But with success came challenges. Our team started to have conflicts about the future of the company. Some investors wanted to make the platform more commercial by adding paid features or advertising, but Elizabeth and I were strongly against it. We knew that our project was not created to make money, but for people. This period was difficult. We held many meetings and discussions and were even close to losing control of the company. But perseverance and faith in our idea helped us to defend our vision. We bought out the company's stake from investors to ensure the independence of Lifelines. After that, I decided it was time to take another important step. I gathered a team and announced the creation of a foundation that would support initiatives aimed at preserving people's memories and stories. It was like a logical continuation of our work, to help not only through technology, but also through real actions. The foundation's first project was an initiative to collect stories of veterans, people who had lived through major upheavals or historical events. We wanted to preserve their memories for future generations so that these voices would never be forgotten. Sophia was actively involved in this work. She accompanied us to meetings, asked questions, and even helped organize the recording of stories. At her young age, she already understood the importance of what we were doing. One evening, when we were all sitting on the terrace of our house looking at the stars, Sophia asked, "Daddy, are you happy?" I looked at her, then at Elizabeth, who was sitting next to me, and answered, "Yes, Sophia, I am happy because I have the most important thing, you and our life that we are building together." It was a moment that will be etched in my memory forever. I knew that regardless of what the future would bring, I had already achieved the greatest success, love and harmony in our family. Life went on, and with each passing year, our achievements and shared moments became more and more meaningful. Sophia grew up, and her curiosity about the world only increased. She dreamed of becoming an engineer, then a writer, and later an artist. There was always a light in her eyes, and I saw in her a reflection of the enthusiasm that once led me to create Lifelines. One day, Sophia brought us her school project. She had created a series of drawings that illustrated different stories from our family's life. One of them depicted Elizabeth and I sitting on the terrace looking at the stars. Another was of me helping her ride her bike. The drawings were simple, but they had soul. It made me think about how important these moments are for her and for all of us. This inspired us to add a new feature to Lifelines: the ability to store and share stories not only in words, but also through pictures, music, and even self-created videos. We wanted the platform to be a tool that allows everyone to express their memories in a unique way. Working on this update brought Sophia and me even closer. She helped us test features, suggested ideas, and sometimes even joked that she wanted to be part of our company when she grew up. Her interest in technology and creativity was incredible, and Elizabeth and I did everything we could to support her passion. But life is not without its challenges. We once received a letter from a platform user who had experienced a bereavement. He wrote that Lifelines was a way for him to cope with the pain and find the strength to move on. This letter was extremely emotional, and we decided that we should develop the platform further so that it could help people in similar situations. We created a section dedicated to therapeutic practices. It included the opportunity to communicate with psychologists, as well as group sessions for people who wanted to share their stories and find support. This project required a lot of effort, but its impact was incredible. People thanked us for creating a safe space for their experiences. Sophia saw our work and one day said, "Dad, you really help people." Her words were another confirmation for me that we are doing the right thing. When Sophia finished school, she decided to go to university to study design and innovative technologies. Elizabeth and I were extremely proud of her. She became the person we always wanted to raise: confident, kind, and determined to make a difference in the world. Our lives changed when Sophia moved to the university campus. The house became quieter, but Elizabeth and I found a new rhythm in it. We traveled more, took time for ourselves, and still worked on Lifelines. One day, when we were returning from a trip, Sophia called us and said that she wanted to show us her first student work. She had created a concept for an app that allows people to create virtual spaces with their memory, something that resembled our project, but in a completely different, more modern way. It was the moment when I realized that we had passed on to our daughter the most valuable thing: not only a love of art, but also a desire to help people. And this was the greatest reward for all our efforts. Sophia's project was a real breakthrough. Her idea of creating virtual spaces where memories can be literally brought to life seemed so innovative that even university professors were impressed. She developed a prototype that allowed for the creation of 3D environments filled with photos, videos, and even sounds associated with certain moments in life. For example, the room could play the sound of waves and sea breeze if it was a memory of a trip to the ocean. When Sophia showed us her project, I was amazed. It was more than I could have ever imagined when I started Lifelines. In her work, I saw the future of how people will preserve and relive their memories. I offered to help her on the technical side, and we worked together to improve her prototype. A few months later, she presented her project at a student innovation competition. She won first prize and attracted the attention of investors who wanted to support her idea. Sophia was excited, but she was in no hurry to accept the offers. She said, "I want to do it right, not just make money." Her approach made me even more proud of her. We decided that we would help her set up her own company so that she could implement her project the way she saw fit. I gave her some of the resources and experience I had gained while working on Lifelines, but still left her full freedom to make decisions. Sophia's new project was called Live Moments. She gathered a team of students who were equally passionate about her idea, and together they started working on launching the platform. Elizabeth and I followed her progress and supported her, but more as parents than partners. The first launch of Living Moments was modest but incredibly successful. People were amazed by the opportunity to literally step into their memories. Sophia received hundreds of emails from users thanking her for the opportunity to return to their most precious moments. One man wrote that the platform allowed him to visit his orphanage, which had long since been destroyed, and feel like a child again. Every month, living moments grew, and Sophia became more confident in her work. One day she invited Elizabeth and me to the company's office to show us what they were working on. I felt incredibly warm and proud to see her among the team, who were enthusiastically working on the realization of her ideas. But the most touching moment came when Sophia showed us a room one evening that she had created especially for us. It was a space filled with our family memories. Photos from our first trip to the sea, a video from her birthday when she turned 1, and even sounds she recorded in our old house. Laughter, favorite music, and our conversations. "I made this for you," she said, "so you can always go back to our best moments." Elizabeth and I couldn't hold back the tears. At that moment, I realized that everything we had been through had led us to this, to a family that was stronger than any difficulty and to a future that was so bright and hopeful. Sophia became a symbol that even out of pain and loss something beautiful can be born. Sophia continued to develop live moments, and her project gained popularity around the world. People from different countries used the platform to preserve the most important moments of their lives by creating virtual spaces that helped them not only remember but also relive those moments. One day, Sophia invited me to participate in a big presentation that was to take place in New York. It was an opportunity for her to talk about her vision and the future of live moments in front of a huge audience of investors, journalists, and well-known figures in the technology industry. I was thrilled that she trusted me to be a part of this big step. We were preparing her speech together. Sophia looked confident, but I could see a slight doubt in her eyes, a fear of doing something wrong. I took her hand and said, "Sophia, you have already done more than you could have ever imagined. You inspire people, you change the world. And today is just another day when you will show who you really are." The presentation was incredible. Sophia talked about how technology can be not only a tool, but also a way to connect people with their past, with the best moments of their lives. She spoke with such passion and confidence that the audience burst into applause. After the speech, one of the most famous investors in the world came up to us. He said, "Your daughter is the future. Her ideas are not only brilliant but also human. I want to help her develop this project." Sophia thanked him, but added that it was important to her that living moments remained accessible to everyone, regardless of their financial capabilities. He was impressed by her determination and agreed to support her on her terms. That evening, Elizabeth, Sophia, and I had dinner together at a small restaurant near the presentation venue. Sophia was on top of the world, and I could see in her eyes the same confidence and determination that had once helped me create Lifelines. She was not just our daughter, she became our pride, an example of how to turn an idea into something meaningful. Time passed, and Live Moments became one of the most famous platforms in the world. Sophia has received many awards for her contribution to technology and the social sphere, but she has always remained the same simple and sincere girl we raised. She often said, "Everything I have achieved is because you and my mom gave me the love and freedom to create." Elizabeth and I continued to live our lives, now more as observers of our daughter's success. But we knew that our lessons and values lived on in her and in everything she did. One day, when we were sitting on our old terrace looking at the stars, Sophia joined us. She said, "I feel like this is just the beginning. I have so many more ideas." We just smiled back and said, "We know, Sophia, and we will always be there to help you realize them." At that moment, I realized that life always gives you a second chance. It teaches us how to turn pain and difficulties into new opportunities. And most importantly, it shows us that love and support can create something truly incredible. A few years later, when Sophia was already a well-known figure in the tech world, we all found ourselves on the verge of a new stage in our lives. Her company, Live Moments, had achieved global success, and she decided it was time to move on. Not just in her career, but in her life. One morning, during our traditional family coffee meeting, Sophia announced, "I've been thinking that I want to slow down a bit, maybe take a break and spend time with myself, traveling and my family." Elizabeth and I looked at each other, and I saw the same surprise in her eyes that must have been in mine. "Sophia, are you sure? Your company has just reached its peak," I asked. Sophia just smiled and answered, "Yes, but I realize that life is more than work. You and my mom have always taught me that, and now I want to live that way." This news marked the beginning of a new stage for our entire family. Sophia invited us to go on a trip together that she had been planning for many years, to see the world, explore new cultures, and find inspiration in the simplicity of life. Elizabeth and I were a little hesitant. Our everyday life was filled with work and the usual rhythm, but in the end we decided, why not? The first destination of our trip was Italy. We walked together through the narrow streets of Rome, admired the architecture of Florence, and tasted pasta in small family restaurants. Sophia was fascinated by history and culture, and Elizabeth and I were happy to see her so free and joyful. Next up was Tokyo, a metropolis that surprised with its contrast between tradition and futurism. Sophia was particularly interested in technological innovations, and together we visited exhibitions dedicated to innovations in artificial intelligence. She even started discussing new ideas for her future work. However, the biggest surprise was waiting for us in New Zealand. During one of the walks among the picturesque landscapes, Sophia said that she wanted to try to settle down for a while in this part of the world. "I feel a peace and tranquility here that I have been missing. I think this is a place where I can find something new for myself," she said. Elizabeth and I supported her decision. Sophia rented a small house by the lake, where she began working on her next project, a platform that would help people not only preserve memories but also create new ones by bringing together people with similar interests. This period was a time of rethinking for us. I started writing a book about our experience of creating lifelines, and Elizabeth returned to her old dream of painting. We both felt that life was once again giving us the opportunity to discover something new in ourselves. Sophia, in turn, began to live a simple but full life. She worked a lot, but always found time for walks, new acquaintances, and even organizing small festivals for the local community. Her new project began to take shape not as a business, but as a way to connect people. This stage was a reminder to all of us that success is not just about recognition or achievement. It is the ability to find harmony, live in the moment, and build something meaningful, even in the simplest things. Once, when we were all sitting together by the lake, Sophia said, "I don't know what will happen next, but I know one thing. We will always be together, no matter where we are or what we are doing. This is our true wealth." Her words resonated in my heart because I realized that we had come a long way, but most importantly, we had found what we had always been looking for without even realizing it. Love, harmony, and the true meaning of life. Our life in New Zealand became slow but amazingly fulfilling. Every day was like a gift: sunrises over the lake, silence among the mountains, and a sense of unity with nature. Sophia, who had always been energetic and ambitious, began to show a completely different side of herself. She learned to enjoy the small joys of life, reading books in a hammock, picking berries, and having long conversations around the campfire. Her new project, called Connecting Points, grew rapidly, but this time she chose a different approach. The project was not a high-profile launch or a million-dollar business. It was a platform that brought people together through simple but deep interests: art, nature, sports, travel. It became a place to find like-minded people and create new memories. Once Sophia organized a small event for local residents. It was a storytelling festival where everyone could share a story from their lives. Elizabeth and I were guests at the event, and it was a real eye-opener for me. People shared incredible stories, from travel adventures to moments that changed their lives. When it was Sophia's turn, she spoke about our experience of creating living moments and how this journey taught her to see the value in every day. While listening to her, I felt how our past and present have intertwined into one harmonious story. All those difficulties, losses, moments of doubt and joy, all of this has led us to this moment. The biggest surprise, however, came a few months later. Sophia announced that she had met someone who was very special to her. His name was Alex, and he was an engineer working on renewable energy projects in New Zealand. They were introduced by a common interest in conservation, and soon became inseparable. When we first met Alex, he immediately impressed us. He was calm, friendly, and had a deep understanding of the world and people. He shared Sophia's values and desire for a simple but meaningful life. We saw how happy she became with him. A year later, they decided to get married. The wedding was small, for only the closest ones, and took place on the shore of a lake that became a symbol of our new stage. It was a simple but touching day filled with love, laughter, and gratitude. I remember when Sophia said during her toast, "Everything I have because of you, Mom and Dad. You have shown me that life is not only about what we achieve, but about how we live and who we love." Her words made me remember everything we had been through, and I realized that every step of the way was worth it. After their wedding, Sophia and Alex decided to stay in New Zealand, but they also planned to travel and explore new opportunities. They wanted to not only work, but also create new memories to cherish in their life together. Elizabeth and I stayed nearby, enjoying the peace and how our lives had changed. Every day I felt deeply grateful for how things had turned out. Our paths, full of challenges and joys, have brought us to a place where we have found true meaning in love, family, and simple, yet joy-filled everyday life. And although we had seen so much, I knew it was not the end. Life always has new surprises, new stories, and new moments waiting for us. A few years passed, and the life we built in New Zealand became an integral part of our family. Sophia and Alex moved to a new home nearby, and their work expanded to include organizing educational programs using Living Moments and Connecting Points technologies. They created spaces where children and adults could learn about the history of their communities, discover cultural connections, and even explore their personal roots. One morning, however, as we were having breakfast on the veranda of our house, Sophia brought news that changed our world. She said, "Mom, Dad, I'm pregnant." Her words filled me with warmth and a wave of emotions that I cannot even describe. Elizabeth, who always had the same reaction to important news, hugged Sophia and burst into tears of happiness. It was the moment when we felt that another new stage was beginning. Waiting for the baby became not only a joyful time, but also a time of reflection on how quickly the years had passed. It seemed that just recently Sophia was a little girl painting her first pictures, and now she was preparing to become a mother herself. When our grandson, whom they named Evan, was born, everything changed. It was a new beginning not only for Sophia and Alex, but also for Elizabeth and me. We became parents again, but on a different level. We were now grandparents. Evan became our light and joy. Every day with him brought new memories. We walked along the lake together, showed him the local nature, told him stories about our travels, and even taught him how to swim in the very lake that became a symbol of our family life. Sophia decided to create Evan's own virtual space in Live Moments. She filled it with photos, videos, and even recordings of the sounds that have surrounded him since birth. This was not only a wonderful gift for him for the future, but also a new way to capture those precious moments we all experienced together. One day, when we were all sitting around the fire, Evan, who had already begun to speak fluently, asked, "Grandpa, do you keep your memories?" This question made me think. I answered, "Yes, I keep them in my heart, but also in everything we created together with your mother. Our memories are not only about what happened, but also about what we leave for you." These words reminded me that life is a continuous thread that connects generations. What we had experienced, what we had created, was now a part of who Evan would become and what stories he would tell next. We continued to live, filling our days with meaning. Sophia and Alex expanded their activities, adding programs for families who wanted to preserve their stories. Elizabeth opened a small gallery where she exhibited her paintings inspired by our travels. And I, working on the book, realized that each new chapter of our life is a separate story worth telling. Evan, like his mother, grew up curious and creative. Once, when he was 5, he said, "I want to create my own world in Living Moments with everything I love." His words became a reminder that life is not only about remembering, but also about creating, about the connections we make and the love we pass on. and so our world continued to expand. We all knew that there were still many new moments, new stories, and new discoveries ahead. But the most important thing was that we had our family, our story, which has continued and will always continue, passing meaning and love from generation to generation. As the years passed, our world changed with us. Evan grew up fast, and his curiosity about the world knew no bounds. He spent a lot of time with us, listening to our stories about the past, but at the same time creating his own. Sophia often joked that he inherited my love of technology and Elizabeth's creativity, because he was always busy either constructing something with his toys or drawing fantasy worlds. One day, when we all went hiking in the mountains together, Evan suddenly said, "What if I could create a space where you can travel back to your memories, but really feel like you're there again?" Sophia and I looked at each other and smiled. It was just a childish idea, but we knew there was something special about it. Even at such a young age, Evan was already thinking about how to push the boundaries of what was possible. When Evan turned 10, he made his first project in Live Moments. It was a virtual amusement park that featured all his favorite places: our lake house, shady paths in the woods, and even a small gallery with paintings by his grandmother Elizabeth. Sophia helped him with the technical part, but most of the ideas and design were his own. This project was so impressive that even Sophia's team wanted to use it as an example for a new feature on the platform where children could create their own game worlds from memories. Evan was part of a big new phase for Living Moments, and I could feel its future already starting to take shape. Meanwhile, my life with Elizabeth was also taking on new colors. She continued to work on her paintings, but now focused more on the themes of time and memory. Her new works were admired by the local community, and one day she received an invitation to exhibit them in a gallery in Auckland. This was a big step for her, and I was extremely proud of her. My own book, which I had been working on for years, was finally completed. I called it Thread of Memories, and it was not just an autobiography, but a story about how moments that we often consider trivial shape our entire lives. When the book was published, I received a lot of feedback from people who said that it made them think about their memories and how they wanted to pass them on to their children. But I was most impressed by one letter. It was from a woman who wrote that through our book and the Living Moments platform, she was able to record the stories of her father, who had lived a difficult life. She said, "Your work has helped us preserve what we were afraid we would lose forever." This letter made me think about the impact our lives have had on others. All the challenges we overcame, all the things we created together with Sophia and now Evan were not just for us. It was for those who found something important to them in our stories and projects. As he watched us work, Evan became an integral part of our family, not only as a grandson, but as a new creator in our dynasty. One day he said, "Grandpa, you once created lifelines and Mom created living moments. Maybe I will create something that will connect all of them together." His words were so profound for his age that I just smiled and said, "I'm sure you will." Life went on, and we all knew that new chapters were just beginning. This was the beauty of our story, the endless creation, the memory that was passed down from generation to generation, and the love that united us through time. A few more years passed, and our life, although still calm, took on new colors again. Evan grew up and started studying programming and design at a local school, where his projects always aroused admiration. He set big goals for himself, and we saw his ideas gradually turn into something meaningful. One evening he came to us with a laptop and said, "Grandpa, I want to show you something." He launched a program he had developed over the past few months. It was a tool that allowed you to connect the worlds of living moments and connection points. He called it Pulse of Memories. The idea was to create a platform where people could not only store their memories, but also explore them through interactive connections, as if traveling through time and space. His project was extraordinary. He had thought of everything from design to functionality. I was amazed at how deeply he understood the importance of memories and connections between people. Sophia, Elizabeth, and I immediately agreed to support his idea. Over the next year, Evan worked with a team of young enthusiasts he assembled to launch the platform. It was a time when we all came together to help him achieve his goal. Sophia shared her project management experience, I helped with technical solutions, and Elizabeth inspired him with her artistic ideas. When the Pulse of Memories was launched, it was a new chapter not only for our family, but also for the world. People could create interactive maps of their memories, where each moment was connected to others, through places, emotions, or people. It became not only a way to preserve memory, but also a tool for self-discovery. Evan quickly became a household name in tech, but he remained humble and focused on his goal. One day, when he was invited to speak at a major conference in Sydney, he said, "I learned from my family. They showed me that the greatest success is what you leave behind for others." We were sitting in the audience listening to his speech, and I felt proud. Evan wasn't just continuing our history, he was creating a new one, a bridge between generations that showed how memories, technology, and humanity can be combined. Life went on, and we all saw a new cycle emerge in our family. Pulse of Memories became a global platform, but Evan always made time for his family. He often came to our lake house, and we spent evenings together talking about the past, present, and future. He once said, "Grandpa, I think the most valuable thing we have is the connections between us, and I want my work to always be about that." His words resonated in my heart. I realized that everything we had achieved was not just about technology or projects. It was about love, memory, and those invisible threads that unite us all. We knew that there were still many new moments, new discoveries, and new stories to come. But the most important thing was that our family had created something that would continue to live on even after us. And that was the most valuable thing we could leave as a legacy. Time passed, and our lives took on a new color again. Evan, now an adult and confident in his mission, continued to develop Pulse of Memories. His platform became not only a technological breakthrough, but also a tool that united families, helped people find lost connections, and even healed old wounds. It helped people understand themselves and each other better. One day, when we all gathered together at the lake house, Evan shared his new idea. He said, "I want to create something that doesn't just preserve memories, but gives people the opportunity to live with memories as if they were part of their present. Something like an interactive experience that brings their best moments to life." His idea sounded ambitious, but we all knew that if anyone could pull it off, it would be Evan. He assembled a team of leading experts in virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and psychology to develop a system that would allow people to literally relive their memories, but with the ability to observe them from a new perspective. The project was named Revived Moments. For several years, Evan worked tirelessly. He often consulted with us, especially with Sophia, who had vast experience in creating emotional technologies. She was still his main support and mentor. Elizabeth and I were also involved in the process, sharing our thoughts on how memory affects our lives and how we can use this power for good. When Revived Moments was finally launched, it became a global event. For the first time, people were able to literally travel to their memories, smell the sea again, hear the voice of a loved one, or simply see themselves in the best moments of their lives. The platform also had a therapeutic effect. Many people used it to heal after losses or work with trauma. One day, Evan invited us to his company's office to show us how the new system worked. He uploaded some of our old family memories, walks by the lake, our wedding with Sophia, Evan's first birthday. When we put on the special devices, we were able to literally be inside those moments. It was incredibly touching. I could see Elizabeth wiping away her tears, looking at herself young and happy, and Sophia reliving those moments that shaped her. After this experience, I went up to Evan and said, "You have created something that will change the world, but most of all, you've given us the opportunity to experience once again the love that has always been in our family." He smiled and replied, "That's what I wanted. Love is the most important thing we can leave behind." Vibrant Moments quickly became a part of the lives of millions of people. Evan continued to improve his platform by adding new features and capabilities. He often said, "I want everyone to be able to find their place in their story and realize how important every moment of their life is." Elizabeth and I spent more time together, enjoying the peace and the way our lives were developing. Sophia and Alex were supportive, and we knew that our family would always be there for us. Evan often brought his children, our great-grandchildren, to the lake house, and we spent time together telling stories about the past and building new memories. One evening, as the sun was setting and we were all sitting around the campfire, Evan said, "I think our family will always be part of something bigger. We're not just leaving memories. We're leaving bonds that last through generations." These words were a reflection of our entire life, of everything we have created and passed on. And although our life is full of different stages, challenges and joys, I knew one thing. We had found what mattered most. Love, memories and connections that keep us together, regardless of time and circumstances. A few years passed, and our lives once again approached another new stage. Evan, already a well-known innovator in the tech world, began to think about how his platforms could serve not only to preserve memories, but also to expand communities and create deeper connections between people. One day he came to us and said, "Grandpa, Grandma, Mom, Dad, I want to start a new project. It will be not only about memories, but about the future. I want to create a space where people can not only immerse themselves in the past, but also create something new together, something that will remain for future generations." His idea fascinated us. The project was called Bridges of the Future. It was a platform that allowed people from different parts of the world to come together to create joint projects, cultural initiatives, and even virtual environments where they could work together, learn, and build new connections. The idea was to use technology to overcome the boundaries that divide us. Evan started working on the project with a lot of enthusiasm, but this time he involved not only his team, but our entire family. He wanted each of us to contribute to the vision. Sophia was responsible for the creative direction, Elizabeth helped with visual concepts, and I, as always, was in charge of the technical part, providing advice on how to integrate the platform with existing technologies. A year later, Bridges of the Future was launched. People from all over the world could join in the creation of joint projects, regardless of their geographic location or cultural background. The platform brought together artists, engineers, teachers, scientists, and just plain dreamers. They worked together to develop new ideas that could make the world a better place. One day, Evan invited us to a presentation of one of the first major projects implemented on the platform. It was a virtual cultural park created in collaboration with people from 10 countries. Each section of the park represented the unique traditions, stories, and art of their communities. The main idea was to show that despite all the differences, people can create something beautiful together. When we looked at this park, I felt that Evan had achieved something truly significant. His platform wasn't just preserving memory. It was becoming a platform for creating the future, for bringing generations and cultures together. It was something more than we could have imagined when we first started our journey with Lifelines. Elizabeth and I continued to watch the world change around us. Sophia and Alex actively supported Evan's new ideas, and he worked tirelessly, not forgetting about his family. He often brought his children to visit us, and we spent evenings together by the lake, telling stories about how it all began. One evening, when we were all sitting around the campfire, Evan said, "You know, I always thought that the meaning of life was to create something great. But now I realize that the most important thing is to create something real, something that brings joy and love to those around you." His words resonated with me. I remembered all the moments we had lived together, all the challenges and joys, and I realized that the most valuable thing we left behind was not our technology or projects, but our connections, our love, and our history, which was now being continued by new generations. And although the world was changing, our family remained the center where the essence of all our efforts was preserved. We knew that there were still many new stories to be told, and we were ready to create them, together. As the years passed, Bridges of the Future became not just a platform, but a global movement connecting millions of people around the world. Evan proved to be not only a talented technical leader, but also a charismatic thought leader capable of inspiring people of all ages, professions, and cultures. His name has already been mentioned among the most influential innovators of our time. One day he gathered us all at our family home by the lake. The sun was setting and we were sitting around the big table where we used to gather so often when Sophia was a child. Evan announced, "I want to start a new chapter in our story, but this time it won't be just about me or the platform. It's going to be about all of us." He spoke about the idea of creating an institute dedicated to the study of memory, connections between generations and their impact on society. It will be a place where people can not only explore their past, but also learn how to use this knowledge to build a better future, he said. We were all interested in the idea. The institute was to become not just a research center, but a platform for interdisciplinary projects. From technology to art, from psychology to education. Elizabeth and I decided that we wanted to help Evan realize this project, because it combined all the values we cherished in our family. The first step was to find a place for the institute. Evan decided that it should be a special place, not a metropolis with modern infrastructure, but a quiet and inspiring place where people could focus on what was important. We found an old manor house on the shore of a lake, which was the perfect place for this project. The restoration of the estate lasted almost a year. We were all involved in this process. Sophia developed the concept of the interior spaces, Elizabeth worked on creating an art gallery dedicated to memory, and I helped with technical solutions to integrate modern technology. When the institute was opened, it became a holiday for our whole family. People from all over the world came to see this place. They called it the Temple of Memory and the Future, because it combined research into the past with the creation of new ideas. One of the most touching moments was the opening of the Hall of Generations, a large room where each family could leave their stories in a virtual time capsule. This place became a symbol of the connection between the past and the future, between generations building a common heritage. One day, when we were all sitting in this room, Evan said, "Grandpa and Grandma, it all started with you, with your decision not only to keep your memories, but to create new ones. You gave us an example of how to make life more than just a chain of events." His words made me think. I remembered those early days when Elizabeth and I were creating lifelines, the days when Sophia was just beginning to understand how to connect people through technology. And now I saw how our family had become part of something huge, something that was changing the world. A few more years passed, and the Institute became one of the most influential in the world. Elizabeth and I were less involved in its work, but we were always there whenever we were needed. Our days were peaceful, filled with love and gratitude for all we had. One evening, when we were sitting around the campfire by the lake again, Evan came up to me and the kids. He said, "I want them to know everything about you, about your story, about how you inspired us, because our family is where it all started." His words were the final confirmation that everything we had created was not in vain. We knew that our story would continue in each new generation, in each new idea, in each new moment of love and connection that we created together. And although we knew that there were still many changes ahead, we were calm because our legacy is not just about projects or technology. It is love that will always live on in the hearts of those who will continue our story. A few more years brought our family new surprises and new chapters in our history. Bridges of the Future Institute expanded its influence by attracting talents from all over the world. It became a true center where technology, art, and science came together to solve global problems. Evan and his team worked on projects that helped to save the memory of lost cultures, restore connections between generations, and even teach young people how to build their future stories. But, as is often the case, life also brought challenges. One day, Elizabeth began to feel weak, and after several visits to the doctors, we learned that she had serious health problems. This news came as a blow to our entire family. We came together and decided that we would do everything we could to support her in this difficult time. Evan was the one who suggested creating a special project dedicated to remembering and supporting people who are struggling with illness. He said, "Grandma always inspired us to look for meaning in every moment of life. Now it's time to give something back." Sophia supported this idea, and soon we launched the Living Connections initiative, which became part of the Institute's work. Living Links brought together people who were going through difficult times and gave them the opportunity to create common stories. It wasn't just a platform. It was a space where people could find support, share their pain, and create new hopes together. Elizabeth became a symbol of this project, and her story inspired thousands of people. A few years later, when Elizabeth's health became stable, she began working on her own art project, which she called Light of Memory. It was a series of paintings that she created reflecting the most precious moments of our lives, from the first meeting to the last evenings by the lake. Her works were filled with warmth and love that could be felt in every detail. One day, when we were all at the Institute, Evan announced that he wanted to hold an exhibition of these paintings as a way to show the world how deep the connection between memory and art can be. The exhibition was a huge success, with people from all over the world talking about how Elizabeth's paintings made them rethink their attitude to life. Evan also began to expand bridges of the future to new horizons. He began collaborating with space programs that were dedicated to preserving human heritage for future generations. Together with an international team, he created the Star Memory Project, special capsules that stored stories, art, and memories and sent them into space to be preserved even after us. When the first capsule was launched, we all stood together looking up at the night sky. Evan said, "This is not just about preserving memory. It's about showing that we humans will always strive to be connected, even beyond our world." Life went on, and our family grew bigger every year. Evan and his wife were raising their children, who were already becoming interested in technology and art. Sophia and Alex started working on a new educational project that taught young people how to use the past to create a better future. And Elizabeth and I enjoyed the peace and warmth of our days. We knew that our efforts had not been in vain. Everything we had created, everything we had left behind, had become part of something bigger, part of a story that would continue through the generations. One evening, as we sat together by the lake, Evan said, "Grandpa, Grandma, it all started with you. You were the light that always guided us. And now that light will always burn in everything we do." His words were the true summation of what we had lived. Although we knew that there were still many changes ahead, we were calm. We knew that our history lives on in our children, grandchildren, and everyone we touched with our ideas, love, and memory. The years continued their relentless run, and our family managed to experience many more wonderful and important moments. Evan continued to work on Bridges of the Future and its new branches, including the Depth of Connections project. It was an initiative that explored how human connections shape societies and how the memory of these connections can change the future. One day when we were all gathered together at our lake house, Evan shared a new idea. "I think we need to do something unique for our family. We've made so many things for other people, but I want to make something special that's ours." This idea inspired us all. We began to think about what could be the project that would embody our story and our vision of life. After much discussion, we decided to create a place that would be dedicated to the memory of our family and its impact on the world. It was supposed to be a small but cozy museum gallery where every element would tell our story, from the beginning of lifelines to the present. Construction of the museum began the same year. We decided to locate it near our home, in a place that already had a symbolic meaning for our family. Each of us was involved in the process. Evan coordinated the technical part, Sophia developed the concept of the exhibitions, Elizabeth worked on the artistic design, and I was in charge of the archives and preserving the little things that made up our history. The museum was called the House of Memories. It was divided into several parts. The first section told about the beginning of our journey, how the lifelines became the basis for everything. The next was dedicated to Sophia and her living moments, which changed the way people interact with their memories. The third section depicted the bridges of the future and Evan's global initiatives that have turned memory into a tool for connecting people. A special place was occupied by the Heritage Hall, where we kept the most precious moments of our family life. Photographs, letters, Elizabeth's paintings, and even digital capsules of memories created on the basis of our first projects. This place was not just a museum. It was a living memory to be preserved for future generations. When the museum opened, we invited not only friends and acquaintances, but also many people who were part of our journey. It wasn't just a celebration, it was a symbol of how far we had come. Sophia said in her speech, "This house is not just about us. It is about everyone who has ever touched our lives, and whose lives we have touched in return. This day was one of the most important in our history. We all felt proud and grateful that our efforts were not in vain. As time passed, the House of Memories became not only a family heritage, but also a place where people came to find inspiration. Visitors left their stories there, which became part of new exhibitions. We saw how our vision of life continued to live on in others, and that was the best reward. One evening, when we were all sitting on the terrace outside the house, Elizabeth said, "I always thought that memory was something fragile that could be lost. But now I see that memory is a living thing. It grows and changes with those who carry it." Her words were an accurate reflection of how we all perceived life. Our story was not only about what we had created, but about how we passed it on to live in the hearts of others. And although we knew that we would face new challenges and changes, we were confident that our story would continue. It was part of something bigger, a thread that connected the past, present, and future, creating an invisible but strong bond between everyone who was part of this journey. A few more years passed, and our lives became even deeper and more multifaceted. The House of Memories not only preserved our family history, but also became a place where people from all over the world could find inspiration for creating their own. It turned into a cultural center that hosted seminars, exhibitions, meetings, and even festivals dedicated to the theme of memory and intergenerational connections. Evan, who has always strived for new heights, announced that he wants to expand the idea of the museum into a global network of memory houses. He said, "Every family, every community has stories that are worth preserving. We can give people the opportunity to tell these stories and leave them for future generations." This project was a new challenge for our entire family. We teamed up again to help Evan realize his idea. Sophia took on the coordination of international partnerships, Elizabeth worked on the visual concept, and I advised on technical integration. The first House of Memories were opened in Europe, Asia, and South America. Each of them was unique, reflecting the culture and traditions of local communities. People were happy to join the project, bringing their stories, artifacts, and even family recipes that had been passed down from generation to generation. One of the most touching moments was the opening of the House of Memories in the small town in Italy where Elizabeth's family lived. She showed us the places where she spent her childhood and shared stories we had never heard before. Her memories became part of the exhibition, and I could see how it brought her back to the happiest days of her youth. Meanwhile, our grandchildren were growing up, and their desire to continue the family business was becoming apparent. One day the youngest of the grandsons, Leo, came to me and said, "Grandpa, what's going to happen next? We have created so much, but I think this is just the beginning." His words made me smile. He was already thinking like a true creator. Leo, like Evan at his age, started working on his first project. He developed a concept that allowed people to create their own stories in augmented reality. His idea was not only to preserve memory, but also to bring it to life in real time, making memories part of the present. When Leo presented his prototype to the family, we were all impressed. His work combined what we had been building for years with new technologies that could change the way people perceive time and memory. Evan told him, "You're opening the door to the future. What you're doing is the next step in our history." A few years later, Leo launched his platform, and it became part of the House of Memories network. People could use it to create their own virtual spaces where memories and dreams came together in one world. It was a new level of interaction with memories, and I saw our story being told. Our days by the lake remained quiet but filled with joy. Elizabeth and I often walked along the shore, reminiscing about the days when it all began. She said one day, "You know, I always thought that our lives were just stories, but now I see that they are much more than that. They are threads that connect people into something big and beautiful." Her words summarized for me everything we have created. Our family left not only a legacy of projects, but also inspiration for future generations. And even though time passed, I knew that our story would live on, in everyone who would take our ideas and create something new. And this was the real meaning, to pass on my love, memory, and dreams further, into infinity. A few more years passed, and our lives reached a point where each of us, from the youngest to the oldest, became part of a great stream of change that we had set in motion. Leo, who has developed his augmented reality platform, has gained international recognition. His ideas, inspired by our family heritage, began to unite a new generation of creators who saw memories not only as the past, but also as the basis for the future. One evening, when we were all gathered around the lake, now with our great-grandchildren, Evan came up to me and said, "Grandpa, do you remember when you used to say that life is a thread that connects generations? I think we have built a whole tapestry." His words were so apt that I thought about it. We really have created something bigger than we could have ever imagined. Our projects, our stories, and our family have become part of this great tapestry of humanity. Leo, who heard our conversation, added, "And we're not even done. I think the real magic is that it will never end. Every next step, every new idea will be part of this story." His words filled me with pride. I saw in him the spirit of all of us, that irresistible urge to create, to leave a mark. The next big step was the creation of the global project Trees of Memories. It was an initiative that combined virtual and physical reality. Real trees were planted in each city where a house of memories existed, and virtual branches were created in the digital space stories of families, communities, and cultures they represented. This became a symbol of how memories can sprout into the future, nourishing new ideas. Elizabeth and I participated in the planting of the first such tree near our lake house. It was a special moment, because we knew that this tree would become part of our legacy, which would remain even after we were gone. We buried a time capsule with our notes, photos, and memories under the roots, knowing that one day someone would open it and learn about our story. Time continued to pass and our family grew. Our grandchildren and great-grandchildren were not only the successors of our history, but also its authors. They created new ideas, built new bridges between generations, and even opened up new worlds, not only in the physical but also in the metaphorical sense. One day, the youngest of my great-granddaughters, Emma, asked me, "Grandpa, what do you think is the most important thing in your life?" I thought about it as I looked at the lake that meant so much to our family and answered, "Love, connections, and courage." Love keeps us together, connections help us build something bigger, and courage takes us forward. Her eyes lit up and she said, "Then I want to be brave too." I saw in her words the beginning of a new chapter, a new story that would be part of the tapestry we were creating together. In our last years, Elizabeth and I lived a quiet but fulfilling life. Every day brought something new. Calls from our children, visits from grandchildren and great-grandchildren, news of projects that evolved from ideas we had laid down decades earlier. One evening, as the sun was setting and we were sitting together on our terrace, Elizabeth took my hand and said, "You know, we have created something bigger than we could have ever dreamed of." I just smiled and said, "And this is just the beginning." And I knew it was true, because the stories we told and the threads we wove will never end. They will live on in every heart we have touched, every idea we have inspired, and every moment of love that will last through time. The years continued to leave their mark, but each one brought new moments that became part of our larger story. Elizabeth and I lived out our days in harmony, enjoying the fact that our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren built on what we had started, creating something even bigger and more significant. One day, Evan and Leo came to visit us. They brought something special with them, a new project they had been working on for the past few years. Leo said, "Grandpa, this is our message for future generations. We want to preserve not only the stories, but also all the emotions you experienced." The project was called Living Hearts. It was a groundbreaking platform that allowed storing not only facts and images, but also feelings, emotions, and thoughts associated with memories. It used the latest artificial intelligence technologies that analyzed voice, movements, words, and even facial expressions to create virtual hearts, emotional copies of people that could pass on their experiences to future generations. Elizabeth and I were among the first to try the platform. Evan and Leo spent several days with us, recording our stories, asking questions about our feelings, and the most important moments in our lives. It was incredibly moving to go back to the events that shaped our lives and see it all come to life. A few months later, Leo invited all of us to the Institute to show us how their new project worked. In a large hall, an interactive virtual projection of Elizabeth and I, living hearts, came to life in front of us. These were not just our images or voices. They were our emotions, our thoughts, and our memories all brought together. The great-grandchildren came up to this projection, talked to it, laughed, and even cried. They could hear us talking about our first years together, our dreams, the creation of lifelines, and everything that happened after that. It was unlike anything we had ever seen before. Elizabeth took my hand and said, "We will always be with them now, even when we are gone." Her words sounded like a promise, and I knew she was right. Living Hearts quickly became part of a new wave of technologies that helped people preserve and pass on their stories. People from all over the world used them to connect with their families, preserve the memory of their ancestors, and even pass on their dreams and hopes to future generations. Elizabeth and I watched with gratitude and pride. Our children and grandchildren have turned our lives into something that will live on forever as part of the global heritage of humanity. One day, when I was sitting by the lake with Leo, he asked me, "Grandpa, have you ever been afraid that something might be forgotten?" I thought about it and answered, "Maybe I was afraid once, but now I know that we left more than just memories. We left connections, and connections are something that never disappear if they are real." His eyes lit up, and I saw him writing down my words in his notebook. It was the moment when I realized that our story continues not only in projects but also in the hearts of those who follow us. Time passed, but our lives remained filled with love and meaning. We knew we had done our best to leave a mark on the world. And although Elizabeth and I already realized that our journey was coming to an end, we were calm, because our story never ended. It lived on in our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, in the memory homes, in living hearts, and in every moment we created together. And we knew that this trail would last for a long time, because love and memory are things that never disappear. A few more years passed, and our lives became like a calm river, flowing smoothly but retaining all the power of the previous storms and torrents. Elizabeth and I enjoyed every day, knowing that our efforts had left a meaningful mark. But life, as always, had its surprises. One evening, while we were sitting on the terrace, Evan and Leo came to visit us. They had the same spark in their eyes that I had seen years ago when Sophia and I started Lifelines. Leo was holding a tablet, and his voice was full of excitement. "Grandpa, we have found a way to preserve not only your memory, but also your vision of the future." They spoke about a new stage in the development of Living Hearts. Now the platform was not just recording memories and emotions. It could analyze people's thoughts, predictions, and even dreams, creating digital models that could help future generations make decisions. It was not just a technology, but a real tool that united the past and the future. "We want to record your dreams, Grandpa," Leo said. His words took me by surprise. "Dreams?" I asked again. "Yes," he replied. "Your vision of what the world should be like for future generations. We want to preserve it not only for our family, but for everyone who comes after us." Over the next few weeks, Elizabeth and I spent hours talking with Evan and Leo. They asked us questions about what we thought was most important to humanity, what values should live on forever, and how we envisioned a future where memory, connection, and love are the foundation of everything. These were deep and touching conversations. We talked about the importance of family, how technology can bring people together rather than alienate them, and that true success is what we leave in the hearts of others. One day, Evan said, "Grandpa, your vision already lives in us, but now it will be available to everyone." His words made me feel the same inspiration I once felt when we first launched Lifelines. A year later, Leo announced the launch of a new project, Future Paths. It was a platform that connected the dreams of past generations with the challenges of the present and future. People could interact with memory models that inspired them and helped them find answers to complex questions. Our stories, our thoughts, and our dreams became part of this platform. When it was launched, we all gathered together by the lake and watched the presentation. It was the moment when I realized that what we had created was living on, turning into something bigger than we could have ever imagined. Now our days were filled with peace and quiet joy. We knew that our story continued in everyone who touched our ideas. Elizabeth often said, "We live not only in our time. We live in everything we leave behind." Our grandchildren and great-grandchildren continued to create, discover new worlds, and build bonds that transcended time and space. And Elizabeth and I lived with the realization that love and memory are the most valuable things that can be passed on. One evening, when the sun was hiding behind the horizon and the whole family was gathered around us, I said, "We started with a simple desire to preserve moments, but now these moments have become part of something infinite. And this is the greatest achievement of our lives." And I knew it was true, because our story is not the end. It is a thread that continues to weave, creating a tapestry in which each of us has left a piece of our souls. A few more years passed, and our life became like a calm sunset, warm, rich, and filled with harmony. Elizabeth and I saw our family grow, as new generations continued what we had started. Our grandchildren and great-grandchildren have changed the world, building on the ideas that we laid down decades ago. One morning, sitting by the lake, I received an unexpected invitation. The institute that Evan and I had once co-founded was organizing an event to honor the families who had left the greatest mark on memory. They wanted Elizabeth and me to be the guests of honor. I shared the news with her and she smiled. It seems that our life has truly become a dream come true. At the event, we saw familiar faces, people who once participated in our projects, those who used living moments and bridges of the future, and even those who studied at the houses of memories. It was amazing to see how our small seed grew into a huge forest that united so many people. Evan delivered a speech that was incredibly sincere and touching. My grandparents showed me that memory is not just about the past. It's about love, about connections, and about how we can build the future by remembering who we are. His words provoked applause, but for me they were something more, a confirmation that we were living the right way. When I returned home, I often thought about how far we had come. Our life was not perfect. There were many challenges, pain and doubts. But what always sustained us was the love that united our family. One day Leo came to me with a new idea. He said, "Grandpa, I think we need to create something that will live on even when the projects are forgotten. Something so strong that time cannot destroy it." His idea was to create the Chronicle of Humanity, a global initiative that would preserve the stories of not only individual families or communities, but all of humanity. It was ambitious, even for Leo, but I saw in his eyes the determination I remembered from our first days. We supported him as a family, and the new project began. The Humanity Chronicle was the biggest joint effort of our family. It brought together all of our previous projects and supplemented them with new technologies that allowed us to store and share knowledge, emotions, and experiences on a scale we could never have imagined. When the first section of the Chronicle was completed, Leo invited us to the Institute. It was an interactive exhibition that allowed visitors to relive the history of mankind, from the first civilizations to the present. It combined augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and traditional art to create a unique experience. One of the chapters was dedicated to our family. When I saw it, I could not contain my emotions. There were our photos, recordings, videos, and even words we had once said, recreated in a virtual space. It was as if we were looking at our lives from a different perspective. We knew that our time was running out, but we were calm. We had done everything we could. We lived the life we wanted to live and left behind a legacy that will live on. One evening, when Elizabeth and I were sitting around the fire, she said, "You know, I always thought that happiness was having something of your own, but now I see that true happiness is sharing it with those you love." I took her hand and answered, "And we shared it every day. That was the best thing we could do." And although we knew that life goes on, I felt that our story was over. But it was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter that would be continued by those who came after us. Because memory is not about the past. It is about how we live now and what we leave behind. And love is what keeps us together, regardless of time. As time went on, our family continued to grow and strengthen, like a huge tree whose roots were laid in our first joint ideas. Our great-grandchildren, young and ambitious, took on more and more responsibility, not only continuing to develop our family's projects but also adding new dimensions to them. One day, Leo, who led the Chronicle of Humanity project, invited us all to a special event. He gathered the family in our old house by the lake and told us how new generations have come together to make the Chronicle accessible to everyone. We want everyone to be able to preserve their stories, regardless of place or resources. This will be the greatest legacy we can leave to humanity, he said. The event took place in the main hall of the Institute. It was a grand moment. Our whole family was there. Evan, Sophia, Leo, and even the younger great-grandchildren who were already starting to take their first steps in the world of big ideas. When Leo gave his speech, I felt a pride that is hard to describe in words. He said, "This moment is not just about us. It is about every family, every story, every person who has left their mark on this world. We have collected everything we have learned from our ancestors and turned it into a foundation for the future. But the most important thing is that it all started with love, with the desire to understand and support each other." His words made me think. Our lives were not just a series of events. It was a thread that connected us to those who came before us and to those who would come after us. After the event, Leo showed us the new interactive section of the Chronicles of Humanity. It was dedicated to our family. It contained our stories, our memories, our ideas, but also a message for future generations. Leo said, "I want everyone who sees it to realize that the power of memory is in the connections, and that even the smallest moment can change everything." One of the most touching moments was when he added a message to the section that Elizabeth and I had recorded years earlier. Our image appeared on the screen and we said, "If you are watching this, know that love is the most valuable thing we can leave behind. Live honestly, create from the heart, and always remember those who came before you. You are the continuation of our history, and we believe in your future." Now our lives were like a soft melody that was still playing in our families' hearts. We knew that our story lived on in each of them, in every project they developed, and in every moment they created. One evening, as we sat on our favorite terrace, Elizabeth said, "You know, I'm not afraid of the future anymore. I know that our love and our dreams will live forever." I hugged her and replied, "The future is already here, and it is in them. We've done everything we could, and now it's time to just enjoy it as it goes on." And although we knew that our days were coming to an end, we were calm, because our history is not just ours. It belonged to everyone who was next to us, everyone who was inspired by our ideas, and everyone who built their future on the basis of our past. And we knew that this story would never end. It will live on in memory, in connections, in love, which will always find its way through time and space. Life went on, and every year our family found new ways to create, love, and preserve what we had built together. Our lake house became the center where everyone came back. It was a place that symbolized stability and the love that held us all together. One day, Leo, now a mature man with a wealth of experience, came with big news. He was working on another large-scale project called Lifetime. It was a platform that allowed not only storing memories but also interacting with them in real time. People could create moment capsules that combine their past, present, and future actions. "Imagine," Leo said, "that your best moments can live right next to you. You can learn from your past decisions, be inspired by your own experiences, and share them with others in real time." The idea was amazing, and the whole family got involved. Evan became a mentor, passing on his experience with Bridges of the Future to Leo. Sophia helped develop a creative concept that made the platform accessible and understandable to everyone. And Elizabeth and I, although we were observers, always supported and inspired them. When Lifetime was launched, it was a revolution. People from all over the world used the platform to connect with their past and future. It helped not only preserve memories but also use them to create a better life. It wasn't just technology. It was a new way of living, where time became your ally. One day, Leo invited us to a presentation of a new feature of the platform. He created an interactive space where you could literally walk through the key moments of our family's life, from the early days of Lifelines to the current projects. It was not just a museum, but a place that lived with us. As we reviewed these moments together, Elizabeth said, "I had no idea that everything we did would become something so huge." I replied, "But it happened because of each of us. We did it together." Life remained filled with small and big moments. We spent time together, enjoying the simple pleasures. Evenings by the lake, conversations over a cup of tea, shared plans and dreams. And although our family continued to grow, we all knew that the roots of our lives were love and connection, which never weaken. One evening, as we sat around the fire, the youngest of the great-grandchildren, little Jack, asked me, "Grandpa, what will happen next? What will we create after all this?" His words made me smile. "It all depends on you, Jack," I said. "We've laid the foundation, but what comes next depends on how you love, create, and dream." His eyes lit up, and I saw the same spark in him that I had seen in Sophia many years ago, and then in Leo and Evan. And although our life was already calm and measured, we knew that it was not over, because the stories we started continued to live on in everyone around us. We were part of this endless flow of love and creativity that passed through time and connected us all. Our house by the lake remained the place where everyone came back, for inspiration, for peace, for new dreams. And we knew that this place